Oh, I keep thinking I was going to take a picture. I'd like to introduce you to my first special guest. This is the amazing Mrs. Bednar! Woo! You may have noticed she came in earlier while I was reading. She has informed me that she also loves Tuck Everlasting.
I do.
She saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us your thoughts.
No thoughts.
No thoughts?
Oh, I can't.
And we're going to continue reading now. Wonderful to see you, Shelley. Very exciting news about the musical, by
You
the way.
tricked me.
I hope that I get to be a part of it. Continuing on. That was video 1.1.0. This is video 1.5. Okay. We're continuing. We're on page 7. It's getting mysterious, everybody. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. There was no road through the wood. Let me stop and think about that for a second. Why wouldn't there be a road through the wood? Most woods have a road through it. Why would they go around it? That's going to take extra time. Maybe that's going to be important to the story later. And let's think about the Forget-Me-Not Cottage. Or wait, the Touch-Me-Not Cottage is like, don't come here. Go away. It has like a big fence. It's Winnie's house. You're going to find out Winnie is our main character. That's her house, and she's like really cool, but maybe she's feeling like a little bit stifled. Like, everybody always tells me what to do. I just want to decide what to do for myself. Oh, also, I need to inform you, this book is set, you'll find out, probably about 100 years ago. Okay? So imagine a time when there were no cars. People drove around in buggies. Maybe they had cars, but they're like the super old-fashioned kind. Okay, so continuing on. And anyway, for the people, there was another reason to leave the wood to itself. It belonged to the Fosters, the owners of the Touch-Me-Not Cottage, and was therefore private property in spite of the fact that it lay outside the fence and was perfectly accessible. The ownership of land is an odd thing when you come to think of it. How deep, after all, can it go? If a person owns a piece of land, does he own it all the way down in ever-narrowing dimensions until it meets all the other pieces at the center of the earth? Or does ownership consist of only a thin crust under which the friendly worms have never heard of trespassing? In any case, the wood being on top, except of course for its roots, was owned bud and bough by the Fosters in the Touch-Me-Not Cottage, and if they never went there, if they never wandered in among the trees, well, that was their affair. Winnie, the only child of the house, never went there, though she sometimes stood inside the fence, carelessly banging a stick against the iron bars and looked at it. But she had never been curious about it. Nothing ever seems interesting when it belongs to you, only when it doesn't. And what is interesting anyway about a few slim acres of trees? There will be a dimness shot through with bars of sunlight, a great many squirrels and birds, a deep damp mattress of leaves on the ground, and all the other things just as familiar, if not so pleasant, things like spiders, thorns, grubs. In the end, however, it was the cows who were responsible for the wood's isolation. And the cows, through some wisdom they were not wise enough to know that they possessed, were very wise indeed, if they had known. If they had made their road through the wood itself, the wood instead of around it, then people would have followed the road. The people would have noticed the giant ash tree at the center of the wood. And then, in time, they'd notice the little spring bubbling up among its roots, in spite of the pebbles piled there to conceal it. And that would have been a disaster, so immense that this weary old earth, owned or not to its fiery core, would have trembled on its axis like a beetle on a pin. page 8. End of chapter 1. And that's where we're going to stop this video. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, okay? Let's start off with some easy questions. Number 1, who are our characters? If you go back and take a look on page 4, we meet 2 of our main characters, okay? We also meet a couple other characters that are going to become very important. Okay, so number 1, who are the people that we heard about? Main characters. Please put a number 1 on your paper, write characters, and let's use complete sentences, ace the question. The main characters are, or characters that we heard about in chapter 1 and the prologue are, okay? The second thing I want you guys to be writing down, so number 2, what is the mood of the story so far? What's the mood? Does it seem happy, sad, exciting, mysterious, interesting, funny? You know, so what kind of adjectives would you use to describe what the author, Natalie Babbitt, is trying to portray so far? Okay, so number 1, characters. Number 2, what's the mood? And then number 3, I would really like for you guys to find a few words that maybe you haven't heard before and look them up. For example, they talk about tranquil bovine picnics. What does that mean? What are tranquil bovine picnics? That's page 5. Okay, maybe accessible, page 7. Accessible. What is a otherworld appearance? That's from page 6. What if the grass looks ragged and forlorn? That's also on page 6. Okay. And what does the ash tree look like? Let's find out these things so that we can get an idea of the kind of the setting, the background, and the mood that Natalie Babbitt is telling us about in the first chapter and the prologue. Okay, thank you again. That's page 1 to 8 of Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. Please bring your answers to me at group time. Thank you.